Rise, and this evening we have two invocations. We have Pastor Tim Moulter from Calvary Chapel as well as lay minister Ramona Heitman from St. James Church. So we'll ask them both to lead us in the invocation, followed by the pledge.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity to gather together. We ask that you would bless this meeting and give each person here wisdom. We thank you for blessing this city the last 150 years. We ask that you just continue to bless this community. We also ask for warmer weather. We believe it's on the way, and we just ask that you continue to help us to be good stewards with the resources in this community, that we can better prosper the lives of each family member and person here. We also, God, ask that you would just continue to protect our community, keep it safe, help us to be prepared for those kind of situations. And we just ask that you'd give wisdom and discernment to the meeting tonight, and also the meetings that will be taking place throughout the month. We entrust this time to you, and we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen.
Almighty and ever-living God, source of all wisdom and understanding, be present with those who take counsel here. Guide them to perceive what is right, and grant them both the courage to pursue it and the grace to accomplish their duties. Give them the spirit of wisdom, charity, and justice, that with steadfast purpose they may faithfully serve in their offices to promote the well-being of all people. Lord, you proclaim your truth in every age by many voices. Guide those community members who speak here tonight, that they may do their part in making the heart of this people wise, its mind sound, and its will right, such that together we may eliminate poverty, prejudice, and oppression, that peace may prevail, and we may have justice with order in all of this community. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. It is April 18th, 2022, 5:30, and I'll call this meeting of the Fergus Falls City Council to order. Roll call, please. Here. Here. Here.
Here.
Here. Here.
Here.
Here. We have a quorum. First item on the agenda is approval of the agenda, and I believe there's one item to add. Is that correct? We'll call on our City Administrator, Andrew Brumseth.
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. Council members, good evening. Under petitions and communications this evening, we have Kevin Scheidecker and Heather Jacobson from the County Assessor's office joining us, and we'll look to some guidance from them.
And then we'll add that under petitions and communications. Okay, great. With that, I'd look for a motion accepting that amended agenda. Thank you, Krista. Thank you, Jim. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Under public hearings, we have one final cost hearing for Public Improvement 6077, the 2021 Sidewalk Driveway Improvement Project, and we'll call on our City Engineer, Brian Ybarra. Good evening, Brian.
Good evening, Your Honor, and members of the council. Yes, before we begin, this is for Public Improvement 6077. This will be the final cost hearing for the 2021 sidewalk improvements. This is a 100% petition project that we do on an annual basis throughout the city. Prior to this meeting, individual assessment rolls were delivered to the participants, and a notice was published in the Fergus Falls Daily Journal in regards to this meeting. Just want to go over just a quick synopsis of the type of project. This is a 2021 sidewalk and driveway improvements as petitions, 100%. Locations miscellaneous throughout the city. Legal description as per individual assessment. I just want to note today is the hearing date, April 18th, 2022. Interest rate of 4%. The assessment terms are variable. That's based on the individual assessed values. And just want to remind in the packet the final cost of this program was $75,526.17. The amount assessed to individual owners totals to be at $19,297.51. I've included the final cost breakdown spreadsheet along with the individual assessment rolls with locations. Just noted in the second attachment, the areas highlighted in yellow are the ones that petitioned for this project. So at this time, Your Honor, I'm just requesting to open up the final cost hearing.
Thank you, Brian. We will do that at this time. The final cost hearing for Public Improvement 6077 is open. Anyone wishing to speak to that project, please step to the lectern. Seeing no one, we will close the final cost hearing, and it's back to the council. We're looking for a resolution to adopt that final cost assessment.
Make that.
Thank you, Brent.
I'll second your honor.
Thank you, Justin. Any questions for Brian? Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 That resolution is approved. Under awarding of bids, we have one bid to award this evening, and that is a concrete quote for the Dr. Allen Magnuson Park to spread that concrete in the amount of $39,330. And again, we'll call on our city engineer, Brian Ybarra.
Yes, Your Honor, this is for the flat work concrete work in regards to this improvement project. Solicited quotes, Scarrett Concrete submitted the lowest quote in the amount of $39,330. So at this time, I'm requesting awarding the concrete quote to Scarrett Concrete in the amount of $39,330.
Thank you, Brian. We can do that through a resolution.
I'll make that, you know what I mean?
Thank you, Anthony.
I'll second.
Thank you, Jim. Questions? Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 That resolution is approved. We have a proclamation declaring April 29th as Arbor Day and May 2022 as Arbor Month. We have a proclamation from the Arbor Day Foundation where I'll read, whereas climate change is a complex problem that impacts all Minnesotans and our ability to thrive, and whereas the health and longevity of Minnesota's trees are being affected by changing temperatures and precipitation, more extreme weather events, and increasing pressure from pests, diseases, and invasive species, whereas Minnesota is at risk to lose over 1 billion ash trees due to emerald ash borer, which would impact carbon storage, habitat, water movement, and water quality, whereas trees capture carbon from the atmosphere and store it in the trunks, roots, and surrounding soil, thereby offsetting greenhouse gas emissions, whereas a healthy tree canopy decreases temperatures along streets, providing cooler spaces in the summertime, and whereas trees reduce stormwater runoff and act as a filter preventing sediment and pollutants from washing into waterways, and whereas Minnesotans can help build resilient communities and reduce the negative impacts of climate change by planting and caring for trees one tree at a time. Now therefore I, Ben Shire, Mayor of the City of Fergus Falls, Minnesota, do hereby proclaim April 29th, 2022 as Arbor Day in the City of Fergus Falls, and the month of May 2022 as Arbor Month. Under petitions and communications, now we will welcome Kevin Scheidecker and Heather Jacobson from the County Assessor's Office to give us an update on 2023 evaluations that were mailed out recently.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks for being here, Kevin.
I hope it's okay I bring my notes up like this. This will keep me on track with what I want to talk about. I'm Kevin Scheidecker. I'm the new county assessor. I replaced Doug Walvotny, who retired after a lot of years of service with the county. And then my replacement, I was the chief deputy, but my replacement is Heather Jacobson. She's the new chief deputy assessor. As you can imagine, I've had lots of opportunities to discuss value in the county with a lot of people, okay? And so what I want to do is just briefly touch on kind of what went into these values, what went into how we determined them, talk a little bit about the tax side of it, and then I'll finish with a little discussion on commercial properties in Fergus Falls. Well, as my notes decide whether or not they're going to come up, I'll just go without them. Each year, as a county assessor's office, we have to revalue 65,000 parcels in the county. We have to reassess them, revalue them. And what we do in order to revalue them is we take a look at sales. These sales occur between October 1st for this current assessment. They've occurred October 1st of 2020 to September 30th of 2021. We take a look at all the sales that occurred during that time frame. We pick out the ones that are what we call good sales. There's no duress, there were arm's length transactions, they weren't relatives, there wasn't a foreclosure. So fortunately for us in the city of Fergus Falls, we had somewhere over 200 sales of just residential property, residential seasonal type property. So that's a lot of good data. And when we take a look at that data, what we do is we look at all those sales that occurred, and we take our value in our system, our assessed value, and we compare it to the sale price of all those sales that occurred. We take that data, we lay it out all in order of the lowest ratio to the highest, and we look at the one right in the middle. And when we looked at the one right in the middle, and this was probably true for all 84 jurisdictions that we're responsible for, our ratio was not a little bit low, but way low. So we recognized our values that we had for Otter Tail County had to come way up. Now, I don't think it's a surprise to anybody to see and understand what the market has done. We had low interest rates. Believe it or not, we think COVID had an impact with people saying, if I can work from home, I can work from home in Otter Tail County. I don't need to be in the city. So we think there's a lot of factors that went into this market being the way it is. To not be able to come up with a better word, I'll say this, it was shocking to us to see what home values, not just homes, agriculture, commercial, industrial, everything across the board was going up. I think even our lake properties, if any of you, if you have any seasonal lake properties, you probably have your value notice and you can see what kind of a value increase we were looking at. Let me get back on. So what we do as an office is we start by looking at county-wide issues, ag land, that tillable, woods, wetlands, all of that stuff, when we set those values first. Okay? Once we get those county-wide things set, and trust me, we had to touch almost everything. Building sites, irrigation, tillable, everything had to take an increase just because of what it's selling for, right? That's the basis of everything, what it's selling for. So again, going back to that ratio in the city of Fergus Falls, we have to be at 90 to 105% on our ratio for that middle sale, that median sale. In most cases, we were in the 70s and sometimes we were in the 60s in that median ratio. So right there, we knew how far we were going to have to come up with our values. Fergus Falls was no different. Our residential and a few seasonal, there's not a lot of seasonal properties, we had to bring them way up. And we have to do that. Department of Revenue requires us to be at that 90 to 105% on that median ratio. If we don't do it, they'll come in and do it for us. And we don't want that if at all possible, right? Let the local folks handle that. So got our values set, notices go out, and I think as much as we knew we were raising values, we were probably quite shocked at the call volume we've had. Just only because I know it, Heather probably had over 300 calls in just the first couple of weeks herself. Now, we take pride in getting back to people right away. Less than a day, we've been unable to do some of that. We're having a hard time keeping up, but we want to be able to be responsive. What's everybody's first question after they get done talking to us about values? What's our taxes going to do? What's this going to do to our taxes? If my value went up 40%, and a lot of times it went up from anywhere from 20, 30, 40, some 50%, are my taxes going to do that same thing? Are my taxes going to go up that much? And I think that's one message that we have been trying to convey to the public with our news releases, our opportunities like this to speak. If it was just a single property going up that much, we could probably easily say that property's taxes are going to go up 30, 40, 50%, whatever it is. But with the market the way it is, and with us having to raise values across the board, okay, that is a little bit different story. What that means is all these values are going up, and when the local taxing jurisdictions set their budgets, it just simply means that there's a little bit of a shifting. The county will likely, I'm saying likely, will be able to lower our net tax capacity rates, because unlike what a lot of people think, because we're raising value doesn't mean we're collecting more revenue. That they think that that's somehow what that means, and it doesn't. It doesn't mean that. So it still continues to be, what is the city of Fergus, Ottertail County, what are they collecting for their budgets? And now it will be just spread out over that tax base a little bit differently. But I've said at some meetings, and I know this is taking a bit of a chance, but I've said essentially I'm staking my reputation on the fact that if your values are going up 40%, your taxes are not going to go up 40%. And I know that's a bit of a chance, but I did feel like I needed to say that. It's just not how our system works. Let's see. Talked about that. So specifically, I wanted to talk about commercial because I know we've generated an awful lot of interest in the city of Fergus with commercial properties. Just to give you a quick background, we looked at, and on purpose, we did this on purpose, we looked at every commercial property in the city this year. And that was by design. We have a new valuation system in place, a new software. We felt in order to get it into the new system well, we needed to look at every property. We looked at every commercial property. Certainly, we recognize that commercial properties, industrial properties needed a bump in value. They're not like they're like every other property type. They needed a bump in value. I will say, however, that we, as much as when we sent out values, we felt we had them pretty concrete. I think that we probably have a bit of work to do there yet. I think we have some certain commercial types that we're probably saying could use a little bit more work, and we will be doing that, whether it's through the council meeting on Thursday where you folks have a local board of review, or whether it's through the county board, however that might be. We do recognize that we have some issues to address with our commercial values in Fergus Falls, that there's no question. You know, so as hard as we worked on those 84 jurisdictions, and trust me, it's a monumental effort, we recognize that there's a few instances just because of what happened where we need to really take a hard look at, especially in this case, Fergus Falls commercial. We've had probably 25, 30 phone calls maybe from commercial property owners. And most of the time we want to reassure them of the same thing that we have all along, which is this is market driven. That's what we're trying to hit. There's no other ulterior motive. We're not trying to collect more revenue for the taxing jurisdictions. We're not trying to do whatever else it might be. We're trying to hit the market with our commercial properties and our industrial ones too. So they're just so much more difficult to work on. And we need to continue to look at those. We need to spend a little bit more time on them. So quite a busy spring, as you heard. I think we've done a pretty fair job of hitting the mark. We have some work to do yet. We appreciate all the opportunities to come out and talk to city councils, different groups, whoever it might be, town boards, whatever the case, because this allows us to educate the public. This is a tough topic. Like I said, people always think about the property tax side of it. They worry most about that. What's it going to mean to my bottom line, my pocketbook, and what I pay in taxes? So I guess I would gladly take questions if there's questions. I, again, appreciate the time.
Just to reiterate, you mentioned the Board of Equalization meeting with the Fergus Falls City Council for Fergus Falls residents is April 21st, and what's the time on that meeting?
9:30, right.
9:30 right here in the...
No, it's a government service center.
Okay.
Yeah, and you know, that's another great reason that we were allowed to be here tonight. This really allows us to talk to the council as a whole in advance of that meeting on Thursday. This will allow us to feel a whole lot better going into that meeting and talking to the council. And I think that your local board of review is a percentage of this group here, half of them. Yeah.
One from each ward. So there's someone representing each ward in the city.
Yeah. Now it is important to point out, as far as residential stuff goes, for a city the size of Fergus, we've had very few calls. I think as of today, Lynette, who's the residential appraiser in town, she maybe had 8-10 appeals of residential properties. Again, it's that commercial. And we're working hard on that to make sure we're doing what we need to do there on the commercial stuff.
So if the public's hoping to participate on Thursday, what do they need to do?
Well, what we hope for always is that they're calling us ahead of time, because that gives us a chance to look at things, to look it over, form an opinion on what's going on. If there's any change that we can recommend to to the local board or not. Certainly, if they just come to the meeting on Thursday, we're not going to turn them away. It just makes it easier if they contact us ahead of time. Again, our volume of calls have been so high, we've had to be very careful to make sure that we catch everybody that wants to talk to us, because we don't want to ever prevent them from that opportunity to appeal because we missed something or we ran out of time or whatever. We're going to make sure we work within the system we have to make sure everyone gets that right of appeal.
Brent, did you have a question?
Yeah, I do got one question for you. This is something that numerous people I've talked to about this are concerned about. How do you calculate the homestead credit that somebody gets on their property?
And that's a really good question. As we talk about things statewide, that's a big thing, because it used to be a homestead credit until about 8 years ago or so. The legislature changed it. It's now a homestead value exclusion. So there's a portion of your value when you're homesteading that's excluded from taxation. That amount decreases as your value goes up until you reach about $413,000 and it goes to zero. So what does that mean? And this is where the discussion comes in. Do we need to talk to the legislature and say, there's no more homestead exclusion? It's disappearing because of what's happening to the market. And should that be addressed at that level?
Shouldn't it be like the opposite way around?
I can't say if it should or shouldn't be. I know what the situation is. I know that's.
I mean, because basically what you're doing is you're jacking up the price of people's houses, but then you're also basically hitting them again because you're taking more of their credit away from them. So basically, it's like getting kicked twice.
No question. And of course, my answer always is, we've got to operate within the confines of statute. And it's not a popular answer, and yet that's the answer I have to give, is we have to live within that statute for homestead value exclusion and valuation, and that's what we need to do. But I do think that at some level, that discussion has to be made.
Jim?
Anybody that's asked me about the valuations, everything, and I've told everybody the same thing. If we don't increase our levy limits here, and the school doesn't, and the county doesn't,
Yep.
your taxes are going to be pretty much the same as they are right now.
Right.
Because everybody's evaluation
Yeah.
is going up.
And I use that same example, and I know it's overly simplistic, but it's the best way to articulate that very thing is if these levies stay static and don't change much, you're exactly right. Now, there'll be a little bit of shifting just because of how much what percent this is increasing. Like always, we have all these little shifts. But generally, again, I say, just because your value went up 40% does not mean your taxes. In fact, I say it now, they won't go up 40%, right?
Justin?
Just a question on, and thanks for all the information.
You bet.
I sat on that board of equalization once, and I didn't know what you shared tonight, so thank
Sure.
you for doing that. It's good information, I think, for all of us. You had mentioned the 90 to 105 ratio. Is that applicable to farmland, commercial, real, every property you look at, or is there different ratios based upon what you're looking at?
The state breaks down different property types: residential, seasonal, agriculture, over 34 and a half acres. I won't bore you with the details, but that ratio is the same for every property type. That's the mark, that's the standard we have to hit. And it's not, in a market like this, that's not easy to do.
Right.
You know, it's really difficult, and yet that's always my biggest fear, is that I miss the mark, and here comes the state, and they're going to say, no, we need to lower values because you didn't do it. So it's always that fear, and you're always focused in on those percentages.
Thank you.
Anthony?
I think just one thing on kind of like the actual property tax going up. I mean, if your property value has gone up by 40% and somebody else's hasn't gone up, then, you know, by kind of the way that the calculation works, you will pay more tax. So I think we have to be careful. If everybody in the county went up by 40%, then the dollar amount that you pay in property tax would be the same. But if you have three properties and one doesn't go up at all, one goes up kind of by, 20% and one goes up by 40%, the way that the county assesses their budget, the house that is now, say, 200,000, one that's 150 and one that's 100, this one will pay more than they did before. So I think we've got to be careful to say your property taxes are not going to go up, because if yours has gone up by 40%, literally if your house was 150 and now it's 200, and somebody else's was 100, they're not going to pay any more because it goes into the pool and it gets divided by the value of the houses. So you will pay more property tax if your statement went up by 40%.
It's complex. It's
Yep,
hard
I know.
to make a blanket statement.
Yeah.
But I think that's why I feel safest when I use kind of a 40%, or if I said 30%, I think I'm fairly safe in saying your taxes will not go up that same percentage. But it's hard to predict, will your taxes go up? How
Yeah.
much? That's the problem, because everybody wants to know that amount.
Yeah.
What's this going to do to my taxes? That's impossible to answer right now.
Proportionally, you're going to pay more if your house went up.
But you did say that all classifications increase in value?
Everything. I think there maybe were maybe a few industrial that we didn't raise as much. But by and large, everything, and then that includes agriculture, even agriculture, our recreational land, everything took an increase. So it's across the board. I think in the whole county, there was 16 lakes that I didn't have to do anything with. Every other lake went up, and some of them it was, I'll say it again, it was quite shocking what we had to do. 800, 1,000, 1,200. Pelican Lake up in Scambler and Dunn is now at $8,000 a front foot. And that's just the highest one in the county. It's easy to remember, but we had to do a lot of work on everything.
All right, Justin?
Maybe just last thing to your point too, but it sounds like they're preemptive for not only the increases with the housing values is the sales. So if you go through a year where there is not a lot of sales to inventory to find your ratio, you're probably not going to see as much movement. Whereas this year there's a lot of residential and a lot of stuff that moves. So it gives you
Moved high.
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
It was, I think that was maybe the shocking part. You go back 2 years ago, we probably had increasing values, but it was in the last year that it really went up. And people are asking us, well, if the market goes down, will you lower our values? And the simple answer is yes. We have to. We have to follow the market. We're required to. So if they go down, we'll go down with it.
Only if there's a lot of sales in that year, though.
Well, right.
I mean,
And
people want to sell high, but they don't want to. They don't want to sell
and
low.
there certainly
so.
is a whole lot less for sale out there, but our threshold is only 6 sales. That's statistically significant in a jurisdiction that we will use them to set our values if we have at least 6. Well, there's not a problem with that in Fergus. Yeah.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Heather. Thanks for the information. And again, Thursday, April 21st, 9:30 a.m. at the Government Service Center. People opportunity, call first to the assessor's office.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving along to the consent agenda, there's 9 items this evening. If anyone would like to discuss any of those items individually, we can take those off. Seeing none, I'd look for a resolution approving the consent agenda. Thank you, Jim. Thanks, Brent. Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 That resolution is approved. Under ordinance and resolutions, tonight we have the first reading of ordinance 27, 8th series, amending the zoning map for property at 432 to 428 Western Avenue from R4 to B2, as requested by SW Properties LLC. And we just need somebody to introduce that this evening.
I'll do that.
Thank you, Anthony. We also have a second reading of ordinance 26, 8th series, amending city code, section 32.28, chapter 113. And that has been the committee. Is there any comment on that? If anyone has any questions, we'll direct them to our city attorney. Roll call, please.
Rupert.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Ferguson.
Yes.
Gustafson.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
Hager.
Yes.
Tony.
That ordinance is approved. Under presentation of claims, there are claims in the amount of $2,402,297.91. Questions, we'll direct them to our finance director.
I will offer the resolution to pay the bills.
Thank you, Jim.
I'll second.
Thank you, Krista. Roll call, please.
Rupert.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Ferguson.
Yes.
Gustafson.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
Hager.
Yes.
Tony.
Yes.
That resolution is approved. Under there are no board, committee, or department reports, no reports from staff or administrative officers. Under old and unfinished business, we have Public Improvement 9508, RTC Phase 3 revised scope of work discussion to have this evening, and we'll call on our city administrator, Brian Uvaro. I'm sorry, our city engineer, Brian Uvaro, and I know Bruce Paulson from Stantec is with us this evening as well. Congratulations, you just got promoted.
Biggest congratulations from me.
It's just a name change.
Yeah, you don't get any more money.
Well, thank you, Your Honor. Yeah, at the April 4th council meeting, the city council, they sent us back to come back with another revised work scope for Phase 3 that includes the mothballing for all campus buildings and a little bit of enhanced preservation work for Cookbride Tower. Myself and Bruce Paulson from Stantec, he's here. We have the scope in front of you, consisting of a series of alternates and everything. But I asked Bruce to be here just to go through his work scope to give you a little bit line by line what we're proposing as far as the base bid and alternate work scope, which does have, it's a matter of how much budget we do want to spend and everything as well. But at this time, I'm just going to turn over to Bruce to have some open dialogue about the scope that's included in your packet, please.
Thank you, Brian. Good evening, Bruce. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much for having me. So based on the meeting a couple of weeks ago, I went back and revised the proposal from only being focused on building 1 to looking at all the buildings and being more just mothballing the entire campus rather than trying to do a little more preservation work on building 1. So on building 1, the current proposal is to repair or replace any of the windows that are broken. There are a couple of windows in the tower that are broken. And then one of the things we're going to do all the way around the entire campus on all the buildings is excavate at all of the ground floor windows that are partially buried currently. They're glass block windows. The first almost the full first glass block that's 12 inches by 12 inches is below dirt. So we go around, excavate to expose the bottom of the window, get that all cleaned up, and then apply a membrane waterproofing right over the glass and onto the block on either side, extend it down to get that sealed up, and then restore the grade, make sure that it's a positive slope away from the building, and then restore the sod.
The one question I have on that is, a lot of those are in window wells. Are the window wells going to be removed at that point? Because in order to go outside the window, they're going to have to be removed. Is that something where they're just going to seal up the windows and then backfill up to it and grade it away, or are they going to put the window wells back in?
Where the window wells are, we'll restore those window wells, but that's basically just on the south side of 26 is window wells. Pretty much everywhere else, all the way around the building, the grade is just right up against the windows.
Okay.
So, and then one of the other things that we discussed a couple of weeks ago is on all of the first floor windows, all the way around the entire campus, would be to install a half-inch sheet of treated plywood over the windows. We'd secure the sheets of plywood into the mortar joints in the glass block, and then paint the plywood to match the adjacent block. And those two measures would be basically to seal up the building and prevent vandalism and folks from breaking in, or at least make it a lot more difficult for them to get in.
Now, as far as the number one on repair and replace the broken glass on that, is that something? What are they looking at replacing it with? I mean, is it, they just going to replace the glass planes, or can we just go and do the same thing that we're doing on the main floor, just to plywood over them, seal them up, paint them so they don't stick out in order just to keep the moisture out?
Yeah, we could certainly just cover them up and not put new glass in.
I mean, because they're, with the way things are going, I mean, if they're going to still try to get in, and that's how a lot of them got broken in the first place.
Yeah, and at least on building one, the broken glass is on the tower.
Yeah.
So, I think that was probably from throwing rocks. But you're right. We could just not replace glass and just cover that up with some plywood.
Yeah, because once you paint it, it's not going to stick out at you.
Right. Yep, we can do that. See, then the other, on building one of the other items was replacing the grounding finial that came down when it got hit by lightning quite a few years ago. That shouldn't be a real big deal. The majority of the grounding cable is still inside the building, so there's a short section that needs to be reconnected to finial when it's installed. And then items 6 and 7 go for all the buildings all the way around the campus, as connecting to the existing downspouts or installing downspouts that are missing, and then make sure that when they get down to grade that they are positively directed away from the building to prevent any water that's coming down the downspouts from going back against the building and continue to infiltrate into the ground floor. That is pretty much the base bid work, with the exception of building 23 and 27. The base bid would be to replace the damaged shingles, replace damaged underlayment with like materials that are currently there, and just do the minimal amount on the asphalt shingles on both 23 and 27. And on 27, included in the base bid would be full replacement of the EPDM flat roof system on the north end of building 27. There isn't anything that can be done to try and repair that. It's got to be a total replacement along with all the flashing in order to make that watertight. And then the alternates that are included for building one is doing a mold abatement survey to determine exactly how much mold is there, what types, and what level of work would need to be done to do the abatement of that. And then if the alternates awarded, we would also be including in that project then would be providing indoor ventilation, temporary system like we had previously proposed, basically having a small ventilation unit on each floor with fabric ductwork to circulate the air throughout the floor. And we would need to work with SHPO to determine which windows on each floor we can install a temporary louver for bringing outside air in, and then exhausting in order to keep that ventilated. With that, there are 4 doors that go from building 1 into the connecting link that gets you to 22 and 26. Those doors would be completely sealed in order for us to make sure that the indoor air quality, once we do the mold abatement, the indoor air quality in building 1 remains clean and doesn't get contaminated by the rest of the campus that won't be abated at this time. And then alternate number 2 for building 23 is a full replacement of the asphalt shingles and underlayment, repair or replace any of the damaged roof sheathing. Right now it's 1x6 or 1x8 shiplap is the roof sheathing. Alternate number 3 for building 27 is basically the same thing, do a full asphalt shingle and underlayment replacement, and then repair or replace any of the damaged roof sheathing. And then alternate number, I got it numbered wrong, alternate number 4 would be doing a full roof replacement on building 29.
On the, there's a lot of window AC units. Can we add that as an alternate bid, removing those and boarding those windows up?
Certainly can.
I mean, that's another point of entry, of
Well,
moisture as much as anything. I don't know, they're fairly high up.
Yeah, they're
So-
going to end up being quite spendy, because one of the persons I talked to works with the city who's had to remove those. When the state put them in, they did not want them removed. They are extremely difficult to get out.
That's a good reason then to use this money to do it.
That's easy enough to add as a
Yeah.
alternate.
Yes.
Any other questions for Bruce?
Ben?
Yeah, Scott.
As he was going through the list on building 1 alternate, I think he probably just overlooked that you had also intended to clean the center tower floors and store the doors and, was there one other thing? Well, electrical service upgrade. That was included in the paperwork that we got,
Right, that's all included under alternate number 1.
okay? And then on page 5 of the paperwork that we got, the building 29 alternate is actually indicated as alternate number 2. That should read number 4.
Correct.
Okay. That's all.
So we would, I guess, ultimately be looking for a resolution authorizing the scope of work and the professional service agreement with Stantec, and then authorizing the bid process, the going out for bid.
Basically, at this point, it's just to move forward with the design.
Order the plans.
Just
Yep.
just the scope of work and the professional services agreement?
Right.
Correct.
Yeah, once we assemble the drawings and get through all of the reviews with SHPO to make sure that they're okay
Got it.
with all of the work, then when we're ready to issue our bids, we'll come back to the council and request approval to go out for bidding.
Sure, okay. So would someone like to offer a resolution accepting that scope of work and the authorizing the professional service agreement? Thank you. Krista, thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you, Jim. Any further questions for Bruce? Thank you, Bruce. Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 That resolution is approved. Thank you, Bruce.
Thanks, Bruce.
There is no new business, and I don't believe there's any announcements that we haven't mentioned already. The Board of Equalization, April 21st, 9:30 again at the Otter Tail County Commissioners Room. Next City Council meeting, May 2nd. April 27th is our next Committee of the Whole meeting. Lynn, anything we're forgetting? All right, thanks. With that, we're adjourned.
Thank you.